Week 4 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few running backs I have as sleepers this week. Number one's Eli Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. So Mitchell, he was a big pickup heading into week 2, but he went down in that ball game versus the Philadelphia Eagles with a shoulder injury, and he missed week 3's ball game versus the Green Bay Packers. But right here, it looks like he should be able to go in week 4 versus Seattle. And no one in the San Francisco backfield really took the reins and looked good. Trey Sermon, he didn't look good in that ball game. James Patrick, Kerryon Johnson on the roster as well. But right here, I think if Mitchell returns this week, he's a good sleeper option versus the Seattle Seahawks in a game where I think it's definitely going to be high scoring, and the Seahawks give up the most fantasy points to running backs. So right here, if Mitchell starts and he plays, he's a guy I definitely would put in at the flex as a sleeper option or your number 2 running back this week. The next running back, Zach Moss of the Buffalo Bills. So right now, Zach Moss, he was inactive week 1 for the Bills here, but the last 2 games in week 2 and 3, he's definitely contributed and been a good fantasy factor. In week 2 at Miami, 8 carries, 26 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 8 yards and a fumble loss. And week 3 versus the Washington football team, 13 carries, 60 yards, 3 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. And here in week 4, it's going to be a game where there's going to be a lot of garbage time, in my opinion, late third and the fourth quarter, where Buffalo Bills will be destroying this Houston Texan team, and Zach Moss will be running out the clock and making a few plays. So far in PPR league, 17.4 fantasy points and 18.1 fantasy points. I don't know this week if I get that high of a score, but this week I think he's a good sleeper option, anywhere from 10 to 15 points in fantasy football. And the third and final sleeper running back this week is Darrell Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Darrell Williams, each and every week, it looks like he's getting more and more opportunities here. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I know he rushed for 100 yards, but he had another fumble loss in that ball game in week 3, and a tough loss versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And here in week 4, it's a good matchup at the Philadelphia Eagles for Darrell Williams and the Chiefs. They give up the 10th most fantasy points to running backs. And last week we saw Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard have huge fantasy days. So right here, even if Darrell Williams only gets his 8 to 10 touches in this game, I think he can make the most out of it in this ball game. And if you need an option, if you're definitely got injuries or in a pinch here, I think Williams as a flex or even a desperate number 2 running back in deeper leagues is not a bad play. So that's a few running backs I have as sleepers here heading into week 4 of the fantasy football season.